Well, hi there, everybody, and welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm so excited today because I'm going to be chatting to my wonderful friend who I realized I've known since 2007, I think. I don't know how many years that is, but that's a long time. So we're going to just go with the flow today. Lisa really needs no introduction. She's an amazing yoga teacher. She's a teacher of Ayurveda. She offers all kinds of spiritual guidance through her readings. She's an author. She's just about everything, actually. She's got a lot on her plate. So we're going to be taking a deep dive into what's been happening with us lately. And we would love you to join the conversation. So please remember to ask questions, leave comments, and all of the rest below. So welcome, 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 Lisa. It's lovely to have you with me today. And thank you for joining me.
Oh, it's so wonderful to be here with you, Julie. It always feels like coming home every time we connect. And yeah, it's pretty amazing. I want to introduce you too. We're kind of in this joint conversation today. And, I just want to share with everybody. I met you in, I think it was 2007, and was looking for some guidance with my life. And so much has changed since then, but one thing that hasn't changed is your ability to see the truth and to support all of us in what is for our highest and best good. I mean, that every time we connect, I feel like I gain something, and I'm reminded. It's more being reminded of who I am when I'm with you than it is about being asked to be something else or to transform something. It's more like, oh, that's right. This is who I am, and this is what I need to do to get back to that. So thank you so much for everything that you do for all of us.
Oh, thank you. And I love that because it's not about, knowing any more than anybody else, or, being a teacher above everybody, or, it's about being in the same place and just reflecting back what is seen, giving somebody the opportunity to be able to recognize who they always are and always have been. So I just love that. And actually, you do the same. You do the same through your writing and through all the work that you offer. And on that note, I have to say, I did watch your recent interview with the radio station.
Oh,
I
yeah,
forget,
with Paul.
sorry, the name of the station, but it's a fantastic interview, and thank you so much as well for, I really appreciate the kind of the little chat you had about shadow work, and all of that, and it was just lovely to listen to, and even my husband Tony was listening to it as well, and he's like, oh, this is so cool, this is so amazing, and so thank you. So if anybody hasn't listened to that, that's really good to listen to as well.
Oh,
So
thank you.
so on that note, let's just kind of, if you want to start with the relaunch of your book, Enlightenment Pie, which I seem to remember, I think you first wrote in 2011. Is that correct?
Yeah,
Something.
well, I started writing it in 2011, published the first edition in 2017, and then completely rewrote it. And I have it here. I have a real copy, which is so awesome. And
So
it's
beautiful.
so pretty. Oh gosh, it just really, I designed the whole thing, and it's just been a labor of love. And yeah.
Yes. And it's beautifully laid out. It's very kind of poetic looking, actually, and artsy looking. And then having the QR codes to the interviews is a great idea. It's fantastic. So it's a great resource, and just what a wonderful, wonderful kind of tool for anybody who is willing to do the work and wants to look at every aspect of their being, including their health and their diet, because, obviously that is an important aspect that's often overlooked.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think a couple of things I'll say is, one, don't ever forget what you loved doing as a kid. because what I love doing is I remember, and this was like the 80s. Oh my goodness. And I remember my parents buying our first desktop computer. Like that was a big deal back then. And we had our very first internet back then. I remember watching videos that were like this big on this giant screen that could barely load. It's an interesting thing to be a Gen Xer because we bridge that time before all of this, but then we also are living in it now. And the thing I loved the most was my print shop application. And I used print shop to make marketing flyers and little brochures and business cards. And I'd play school in my room and I'd make little handouts. I mean, this is literally what I did like 12, 13, 14. And that like literally birthed this, I feel, because everything in here, like you're saying, Julie, like I built myself, and I wanted it to be multimedia because I think, I pounded out a lot of content, like over 1,200 videos in the last 3 or 4 years, and they all have a purpose. And so this book is really the framework for that. It's the framework for everything I'm doing is these 4 steps to healing yourself, because that came from all the journals, all the years we've known each other, Julie, all the journals that I wrote in. When I went through them, it became very obvious that there was a set process I was following every time I got sick or got anxious or had issues. So, yeah.
Yes. And this, again, is the value of having a journal. I mean, we don't see it in the moment, when we're kind of in angst and we're writing things out. But it's later when you read back, it's just astonishing what you find there. And how there's so much light and so much wisdom in our own self-reflection. And it's gold. And I often, I got tapped back into old journals to kind of find content and share. And it's tremendously valuable. But coming back again to your book, in terms of you've got, I would say, 4 key components that kind of begin the book, right? One is be aware. No, yeah, become aware, become wise, be present, so practice and then trust, right?
Yes. Yes. And that really is, when you think of a 12-step program, the number 1 step is to become aware of your problem or your issue. And become aware to me has really become synonymous with the awakening, awakening to yourself, awakening to your truth. And it really comes back to that responsibility. And I think that has been the biggest teacher for me, is recognizing that I have the ability to respond to my life, which moves you out of that victim mentality into the creator, because we are the creator, we are source itself. And so that become aware, it's probably the most context in the book, because it's the most important, stepping into that space of becoming aware of who you are, where you come from, what decisions you've made that have led to where you are in your life, good and bad. Really important. And then become wise to me is really the knowledge and the education. I think both you and I can't stop learning. Like there's so much to learn in this world. And so to me, becoming wise is about learning about yourself. The thing that I'll share, one thing that really stuck out for become wise for me that created that step was I went through, some therapy and counseling with codependency. And one of the things that Pia Melody talks about, who wrote Facing Codependency, is that as children, we're supposed to learn these like key components of how to take care of ourselves, and like how to eat, how to dress, how to nourish yourself, self-care, all those things. And it sounds so simple, but I was in my 30s when I found out my food allergies, and I found out about my genetics, and I learned about how to take care of myself. And it was like, wow, for the first time in my life, I know how to take care of myself. I know why my body was overreacting reacting to certain things, I hadn't learned that. And so become wise is really important because it's really learning how to take care of your body. And you can do that through functional testing, but you can also do that through intuition and self-inquiry and journaling. So it's learning about yourself. And I think we forget about ourselves. I think we're programmed to forget about ourselves, work and television and movies and kids and life, and you just go through life, and that's the sleepwalking that we do. And I think when you become aware, you awaken, then it's like, ooh, I need to learn how to actually take care of myself and what I really like. I also remember very distinctly a woman who got divorced, and she didn't even remember what her favorite color was because she was so involved in the relationship. And so it was learning about, like, what do I like? Who am I? That age old question. And
Yes.
then practice for sure sticks out because you have to put it into practice. And that's probably the hardest part. Like, I get out of practice and I go back into practice. It's like, yoga is a great example, or any kind of fitness, right? You can put energy into it and practice every single day and you see changes, but you can also drop out of the practice and then those changes go away. So I think practice is really key. And for me, practice in my book is a lot of resources and tools, because I did a lot of research for myself and it was a lot of work. And I wanted to save all of you who are watching time. So you don't have to do that. I even have a grocery list in here, which I was really passionate about making sure was in this book, is this grocery list that you can actually take with you to the store. So you're not having to like remember, like, what can I have? What can't I have? What's right, what's not right. You just have a list and you buy from the list, and there's lots of stuff on the list. And then trust is probably, I have just this kind of ending of trust. But I know in my heart that before I leave this world, there will be a whole book about trust, because that is something that I'm still integrating, to be honest, is like, how do we trust? How do we trust in ourselves? How do we trust in our path? Who do we trust? What happens when trust is broken? So yeah, I mean, they're big steps.
Yes, yes. But what is really key with respect to what you've outlined in your book is that you have to become aware. You have to lean into your own wisdom, your own inner wisdom, rather than looking for it outside of yourself. You have to practice, that being aware and tapping into your own wisdom. And through those steps, then you're able to trust, because you can't go, in my experience, you can't go straight into trusting unless you have connected in with your own awareness and you are paying attention, you are listening, and you are, doing the work essentially. It's just, it seems an impossible step, to take that leap unless you've actually done the work. And then, of course, what happens is trust builds upon itself the more you lean into your own wisdom and you become aware and all of those things. There's just this kind of synergy and there's an ease, and there's this simple recognition of what feels right and what doesn't feel right, and then you can live your life in accordance with your own higher calling, which is, in my view, the best way to live.
Yeah, I agree. And that's a great segue into your book, because I highlighted something from it. And so you also have a new book. How many books do you have now? 5, 6?
6. And I've said this a few times, but I never, ever remotely wanted to be an author of any description. It just wasn't in my awareness. And it wasn't until I had a radical awakening. And then I think 10 years after that or more, I had a great being who came in a dream and said, when are you writing the book? And that was really what started everything. Even though I didn't have a clue what I was doing. So anyway, I just published number 6, which I published in August. And and it's all about, enlightenment. And I have it here, actually.
Oh, good.
It's, Enlightenment Mythbusting, seeing through the lies that bind. And I was really inspired and sort of inner directed to write the book because I've been working with people, one-on-one and in group settings for years now. And I kept noticing the same kinds of things kept coming up, the same issues kept coming up, which were stumbling blocks. And one of which was I shouldn't, as a spiritual person, I shouldn't have negative thoughts, and if I have a negative thought, it shows that I'm not a spiritual person or I'm not making progress. And that, people really buy into that big time. And they use a negative thought as a sort of description of their state being contracted, or they've lost it, or whatever the story is.
Mm-hmm.
And they never stop to actually question whether that thought is true, or whether that belief is true, I should say, that having a negative thought means that you're not enlightened, or you're not a spiritual person. And when you actually start examining that, then you see that there's no basis in truth, because, negative thoughts or feelings do arise. They might not arise as repeatedly and regularly as someone who hasn't had an awakening, but they can still be there. But what happens is you don't give any credence to them. You just, they just arise and subside like the ocean, the waves on the ocean.
Yeah.
So so those are one of the things that I've explored in the book. Another one is I should never feel bad. I shouldn't have a negative emotion such as anger. I should never get angry. If I'm really spiritual, I should never get angry. And of course, all of that is just bullshit, for want of a better term or phrase, because it's not true, it's not real, it's not authentic. And again, people don't question that belief or that statement. They buy into it. And a lot of it is because there's a view that when you become enlightened, which is often, in the far off distant future, you'll be floating around, never feeling upset or, angry or anything. And you'll just be blissed out all the time and it'll be wonderful. And of course, that isn't real. It's just a fantasy. And it's really what drives the seeking game, this continual running after the next course, the next program, the next retreat, rather than just stopping and being with your own authentic self and listening to your innate wisdom and letting go of the things that are not serving you and being real and speaking your truth, all of those things. So I had fun writing this book, to be honest with you, and exploring these ideas that we somehow pick up along the way, and hold on to, and they can really be big obstacles, huge obstacles. Another one is believing that you can only ever utilize holistic healing practices if you get sick. You shouldn't see a doctor. I've come across that quite a bit as well. And of course, in authentic enlightenment or self-realization, everything is included.
Yeah.
So if you need to go see a doctor, go see a doctor, and at the same time do your holistic practices too. That's really wonderful. But so often we buy into these beliefs, and there's no truth in any of it.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Well, yeah, I want to share this quote. So, I'll share this and then I have a couple things. So, this is straight out of the afterword, actually, in the book of Enlightenment Mythbusting. Do yourself a favor and make an effort to see how many beliefs you have picked up and thrown into your spiritual grab bag in order to keep you busy so that you do not notice what's in front of your nose. And that, to me, a couple things I want to say is, I learned, from working with you a long time ago, the power of the written word. And so I didn't get very far into this book before I was already highlighting these statements of truth. And that really stuck out to me because it's true. We put all of these beliefs just like some of the ones you just named. And then it's so easy to use those to perpetuate the self-loathing.
Yes.
I'm not good enough because I'm not doing this. I can't be a teacher because I can't do this.
Hmm.
It separates you from yourself.
Yes. Yes. Now, I'm glad you brought that one up, because I am not enough is one of the chapters in the book. Because again, I've come across in the sessions I've done with people, I can't tell you how many times I've worked with really, in tune, really engaged, really clear seeing people who keep feeling that they're not enough, they're not seeing enough, they have to do yet another program or get to another level before they can stand in the truth of their own authentic nature. And of course, the idea of levels, the next level, and that we're often sold that, right, online with
Oh yeah.
social media.
What certifications do you have? Like, trust me, yeah, get it.
Yeah, especially when it comes to enlightenment, the story of enlightenment, the idea of enlightenment or self-realization. There's this level and that level. There are no levels. There never were any levels. It's about being authentic to your own seeing prior to the story. And so engaging with and feeling into what feels right. And, the feeling part of that shows up in your body, right?
Yeah.
You'll get kind of a cramping or a resonance or whatever, or a gut feeling or whatever you want to call it, gut instinct. So our body is a great barometer for truth, because we feel it, we can feel it. We often, what happens with me, I feel this kind of resonance, this pulsation within my heart and within my whole being when I'm hearing truth and when I'm seeing authenticity. And it's true of everybody, but I think what happens is it's easy to close that down and think, I'm not as kind of realized, let's say, as a well-known, let's say Eckhart Tolle or whoever, and keep using that person as a reference point and not owning what we're already feeling and intuiting and knowing inside ourselves. So, putting an end to all of that and realizing, I am enough, and what is here is enough is a game changer. But of course, a lot of people are afraid of that. They're not quite ready for it. So yeah, so I have a very sort of direct way of speaking to that, and just helping people to see that they already know what is right for them and what isn't right for them.
Mm-hmm.
um that's key.
Yeah. And it's the awareness, it's being, I know for me personally, when, and it's not like one time, like, I think it's important for everyone who's listening and watching to know it's not like you wake up and then like you're awake. I have 4 stepkids. I have a job. I have my business. I have my creative endeavors. And it is very easy for me to kind of go back to denying certain parts of myself. Not everything for sure for me at this time, but there's definitely some things. And it's painful to stop and say, ooh, I've been ignoring this, or I've been denying this part of myself. And it often for me is in the body, like you're saying, where I get sick, or, something doesn't work right physically, or I become very sluggish and tired. And I think we've come to accept that that's okay. Like, oh, I'm in my, 40s. It's okay to be tired, or it's okay, we sort of like accept that we can be distracted or asleep or out of our bodies. And when you get into your body and you recognize how painful it is to be there, it's very easy to feel like you're not good enough and to beat yourself up and, oh, I gained this weight back and I'm, making these mistakes and going down that path. And, I think the most challenging part is recognizing that that's actually like the ego, and to step out of that and say, okay, like I'm back in myself. It doesn't feel good where I am. But like you said, I can feel why immediately. You can feel why you are where you're at and what you want to do differently and what is out of alignment for you to get back into alignment. So it's not an easy process, but what I love about your book is it it kind of just snaps you back in the center where it's like, okay, like, yes, I have been believing this stuff about myself that's negative, but there's an empowerment to it of I can deal with it and I can step into a new space. And I love that you give very easy tactical things. I like tactical things. It's hard for me to read books that are spiritual, that are ambiguous.
Yes.
And that's part of why I wrote the book I wrote. And it's also what I love about all of your books. And so one of the things you give to do is like do a purge. Well, that's pretty simple. Like clean a drawer, clean a closet. I cleaned out, my pantry, that those tactical steps make it very easy to take action. And I think that that is something I felt really important to talk about today is how do we take action on these new learnings? We read these books and we learn about ourselves, and then it's like, well, what do we do with it? How do we take action on our awakening? There's all this conversation about awakening everywhere, all sorts of conversation about it, but where's the action?
Yes.
What action are you taking? Because if you're not bringing that energy, that Shakti into the world, and I think you and I both are examples of being able to do that, getting the content out, getting the creative projects out, painting the painting, writing the book, getting things out. And I want to talk about that, Julie. I don't, whatever you want to say about it, but I think I want 2024 to be a year of action for everyone who's watching, everyone in our communities, for us. How do we take action on all of these things we've been talking about now? You and I have been talking about on YouTube since 2020.
Yeah. Yes. And also it's about taking action in the middle often of a crazy life.
Yeah.
It's not that all of a sudden, because one of the things I do notice is, and I'm sure you've seen the same, is people will often say, oh, I got this impulse to create painting or do some writing or create a blog or whatever it is, and I'll do it when. And the doing it when is often like far into the future, and then it never happens. So what I found is you really have to be willing to take a courageous step, even if it's a half step, towards honoring what you're feeling and being guided to create from inside, rather than telling yourself, oh, I'll do it when the kids go off to college, or at the weekend when I've got some time, or whatever it is. Because those are just kind of delaying tactics oftentimes, because there's often a reluctance to embrace the prompt, because there's fear around what that might look like, or there's fear around not knowing how to do it, instead of trusting the not knowing and being in the place of discomfort sometimes, and just being ready to see what comes up.
Yeah. Well, man, just even hearing you say that, like, I think of the technology I've learned since 2020. I mean, making movies and YouTube shows and live, and it is a grind to figure out the technology stuff. And yes, I clearly have some kind of technology talent, and it's still like I've spent full days troubleshooting things. And if I would have known how to do it, or I had somebody tell me how to do it, I don't think I would have created what I created. Because I think sometimes when, just like what you're saying, like when you step into the unknown and you say, I don't really know how I'm going to write this book, or I don't know how I'm going to do this thing, it's getting it out there, because this book is totally different than my first one, the first edition. And the first edition is like, wow, gosh, I was like a 14-year-old writing that book. And now I'm like, a 40-year-old writing the book, but that process had to happen. And so it's being willing. And maybe, Julie, that's the shadow work too. Like having the humility of like, I've got some bad reviews about my first book, about the editing and that kind of thing. Oh, well, I mean, putting it out and being willing to do it, even if it's not perfect, like brings it
Yes.
into the world, and then it evolves from there.
Yeah, because the whole perfectionist thing, again, is a delaying tactic. And obviously I'm not saying, don't do your editing and all of those things. I think that's important as well. But in my view, you shouldn't be still writing the book or doing the editing on a book that is like 10, 15, 20 years old. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
There's something, I would say, there's something that needs addressing. And at a certain point, you have to say, enough, and then be willing to put it out there no matter what happens. Because there'll always be naysayers, there'll always be trolls.
Yes.
um, you know, so it just goes with the territory. But yeah, I don't, I never concern myself with any of that. For me, it's about honoring and trusting and listening to what I'm being guided to do, saying yes to that, and then just doing it. Most of the time I don't have a clue. I honestly don't have a clue. But I just know that, it'll come. I'll be shown the way, or somebody will show up and help me. And I think I've shared this before, but years ago, I can't even remember when it was, soon after you and I first connected, I got this hit, create a website. And I'm going, holy moly, how am I supposed to create a website? How do I even begin with that, And then lo and behold, I got an email from you, giving me a kind of an update and saying that you had found this amazing website hosting company, and they had this free, it was like a free month or 2 months or something like that. You should check it out. Literally within hours or so. And so then, I went there and I just signed up, and then I figured it out as I went along. I think it was Homestead. Is it Homestead?
Yeah.
And that's the way it always has worked for me, but it's really about saying yes and having the courage to, follow in and lead and be led from your intuitive prompt, and not worrying about it,
Mm-hmm. Well, and I'd love to put out there for everyone who watches these videos on our channels to share in the comments, like, what are you going to say yes to in 2024? What is up for you? What's the idea that's landed that you want to take action on? Because I think I'd love to hear that. And I think Julie and I love to read all of our comments. And speaking of saying yes to 2024, I think it would be really good for us to talk about what we have going on, Julie. Like, what are you up to for 2024, and where is your work headed?
So, we talked about a little bit about this before we came on to the, for this conversation. But one of the things I have been doing is making myself less available on social media, and really, picking and choosing where I place my energy. And one of the things that I've decided to do is open up more of these conversations on my YouTube channel. I really want to connect in more and have conversations or interviews with people who've had near-death experiences and, radical shifts of consciousness, and who are living true, finding the courage to live true to that. And I say this because I've just recently finished a whole series of interviews with authors, multi-genre authors. I started that, I think, in April, and just finished that recently. And I'm getting emails just about every single day from authors wanting to come on, and I'm having to send an email and say, look, thank you so much. I really appreciate it, but I've closed that down. I'm moving on now to just focusing on people that, who've had these shifts of consciousness, and speaking about that and sharing what that looks and feels like. So that's kind of big. Starting actually now, yours is the first of it. And then we'll be, moving more and more into those conversations. And then I'm writing another book. I'm getting ready to write another book. I won't go into the details of that right now, but That's very much up. And then also doing more intuitive painting workshops, again, coming back to that, because I really, really enjoy that. And as always, I haven't stopped. I haven't skipped a beat. I'm still doing one-on-one sessions with clients as well as group work. I'm still teaching. But essentially, everything that I do is about creating this sacred space to help people, feel in and connect with what is right for them and honoring the truth of who they are.
I love it. Oh, I can't wait for your next book. And I loved all of those interviews. I watched many of them and with the authors, and they were all so interesting and inspiring, and just another reminder about bringing creativity, into the world and into form, bringing those ideas into form, I think is so important.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yeah. Because, creative and spiritual energy is one and the same, right? So if you're not utilizing your creativity, you're really not utilizing your spiritual energy either. And
Yeah.
you see it. I mean, I have family members that just are just doing nothing creative, nothing. And obviously that runs the whole gamut in terms, it might be cooking, gardening, writing a blog, doing whatever, finger painting, it doesn't matter. But it's really about finding a portal into this silence within your own being and listening and just giving time to yourself to be able to sort of open to that and to have those moments where you're paying attention,
Yeah.
But it's just incredible how many people in this world are just on this treadmill, so to speak, running from one thing to another and never, ever giving themselves any time or breathing space to be able to connect in with self. Because, as we know, it doesn't mean that you have to sit and meditate cross-legged for 3 hours. Even if you're a busy mom with kids, you can find a way of creating a portal. Now, it might just be peeling potatoes in the kitchen, but just being quiet with it,
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
baking a cake, whipping eggs, or however that looks. But do something creative. Do something creative, and see what happens. Or do having purging as well is very creative, even though it
Yeah.
seems counterproductive or counterintuitive. It's not, because you're utilizing stuck energy, because everything we own has an energetic resonance. And if we've got a house filled with boxes of stuff that we're not using, or a closet filled with clothes we're not wearing, or whatever it is, junk that we're not we stopped using 10 years ago, then it takes up this space. It's like static, it's noise. And then we wonder why we don't feel connected. We wonder why we can't meditate. We wonder why we're not, intuition isn't working anymore.
Yeah. Yeah. We always know when we've had some kind of shift in our energy because you're cleaning.
Yes.
Every time I have like a Kundalini shift, I am cleaning everything in my house, always. And sometimes cleaning my website, cleaning my email box. Like that's purging too, cleaning all that garbage out.
Yes. And, and in fact, on that note, in addition to cleaning my physical space, just the other day, I went through my YouTube channel and I just deleted off some of the interviews that I just felt didn't have a lot of Shakti. So I just created space there, and I reconfigured as well my website and started looking at my newsletter content and so on and so forth. So it's really everything, actually, and it's about going with the flow of that and following it, because we always get this kind of prompt, do this or do that, and it's just wonderfully freeing. And that's where the freedom is, right? It's aligning yourself with your highest calling or source itself, or whatever you want to call it, and living from that place and not being afraid, even if the prompt is write a book. You've never written a book before.
Yeah.
Yes, it's really about all of those things. Become aware, become wise, practice, and trust, right?
Yes, totally. And that's my focus for 2024. I mean, really, we're going to start the first of the year. I have a lesson plan for my entire community. So any of you join my website anytime, just drop your email in the subscription list. And we're going to spend the entire year going through my book together. And so if you're looking to transform your physical self, your spiritual self, your emotional self, we're going to start at the beginning. And I have so much content that's accessible. So I'll be sharing free content that I have out there on my blog and my YouTube that aligns with where we're at in the book. And I'll also be sharing my home study application. If you want to be in that community, that's the paid version. If you want to do home study, and that's where I teach yoga and block. And we're going to have some cooking classes this year. We're going to do some different things. So we're really going to go through the whole book this year. And actually, my intention is to do that every year because I need it. I need to go back into that space as well. And there's so much in these steps to uncover. And I'm also working on my second book, which I'm excited about, which is about my 7-year journey with the Dalai Lama and dating. And they actually go together, which is amazing. And so I'm hoping to have that out at Valentine's Day, but I don't know if that will happen. So we'll see, but it'll definitely be out next year. So
Fantastic. That's a lot right there.
I know it is. It is. My husband is very supportive and often cannot believe how much content I'm able to produce. And I think you're the same, Julie. I mean, we just keep writing and doing, and you find the time, you find the time and the space to do it. And I think, like you said, the universe will present the person to help. They'll also present the space and time to do what you need to do. Like it'll just open up and you're like, oh, I have time to do this thing now. So I know I'm going to have space to finish this book and get things done and all of that good stuff. So
yeah, that's how it works. I mean, it's funny you should say that, because just the other day I was remembering a photograph that I'd taken some years ago, and I was trying to locate it. And it was a photograph of Rolduc Abbey in the Netherlands, where I'd gone to do a presentation, an intuitive art painting kind of workshop. And I couldn't remember what year it was. I thought, oh, it's 2016 or 17. I can't remember. But, I remembered that I'd posted something on Facebook as a kind of an announcement. So anyway, so I went on, I'm tracking through, my Facebook photos. And, I don't go on Facebook much these days. But anyway, I'm like tracking through, and I just came at it. I was like, holy moly, I have done so much. I've shared so much through art and through writing and through, presentations and, whatever. And I just, oh my gosh, how did that happen? In addition to working full time and doing, a whole writing books and doing all these things. And I just, I realized, oh my golly, this is the power. This is the kind of the magnitude. This is the strength of the Shakti, or of source itself, that energy, that wants to express itself through you and through me. It just has this life, a life of its own. And if you're willing to go with it, then it will show you, what needs to be done and how to do it, essentially.
yeah, it's so true. I mean, it just, and it is, I love how you say it's a wave, because it is, it's like, it comes and it never goes, but it rises and falls. And, but yeah, if you just, for me, I'm like, oh, I got to get this out of me. Like there's something to birth out of me, and that it's time, and you've got to do it, and then it happens, and then you go to the next thing. And yeah, it's kind of amazing. I mean, just looking back since 2020 on YouTube, like all of the videos we've done, all of the work and the teaching, I mean, I just want to share for all of you out there, between Julie Hoyle's YouTube and my Buddhist Biohacker YouTube. I mean, you have years of practice and inspiration and Shakti to connect in with, I mean, that's the thing. Like even my book, there's there's a book out there, and now I think it's called How to Get Things Done. And the author I think he's on like his 28th edition or something. And I get it, because the practices never change. Like the truth is still the truth, right, Julie?
Yes.
Like the truth is still the truth. Like whatever truths you can highlight in your first book, I know are still existing there in the 6th book and the 7th book and beyond. And it's just, unwrapping it differently every single day.
Yes. And just making it available,
Yeah. Yeah.
That's the fun part. And just going with the flow of it is really, for me, what life's all about, and just being amazed every time.
Yes. Yes.
How did that happen?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I love it. And in fact, I was just showing the other day on Threads. I've gone onto Threads a bit more than Instagram for, it feels like a better community. But I was just showing the other day how I think it was in the fall of 2016, I think, I had a dream of Kuan Yin, and it was an incredibly powerful dream. There was just so much energy. It was incredible. And I woke up with the drive or desire to do a painting of her. So I started a painting. And while I was doing the painting, I got this message: offer a workshop and call it Honoring the Goddess, an intuitive painting workshop called Honoring the Goddess. So I didn't have a clue how to do that, but I just got this hit: go onto Facebook and ask who's interested in, this workshop. And I thought maybe 4 or 5 people would respond, and there was, I think, 25 or 30. I can't remember now, but there was a big response. So that then started a whole cycle of me offering intuitive painting workshops, and the venues just manifested. And I did it on Grand Bahama and also in Nassau and further afield. And then from that's when I was offered to a place at a retreat in Holland to present an intuitive painting workshop, which off the top of my head I just titled it Painting Your Dreams and Visions Alive. I didn't have a clue what I was doing, but if I had not followed that kind of impulse to create the painting in the first place, none of what happened would have happened. And this is a key point, because often, and I hear it from clients often, where they'll get this impulse to do something, and instead of going with the flow of it and trusting the not knowing, they close it down and try and figure out a way mentally to kind of organize it and plan it, and then the initial impulse is lost somehow. The freshness of it is lost, and then it kind of falls by the wayside. So this story I'm sharing is really about trusting the flow of what lands in you, and knowing that you'll be supported along the way, even if you haven't got the full picture of what that might look like down the line. You'll be guided from within, which you're really good at doing as well.
Yeah, I mean, I got a prompt to create a YouTube channel in November of 2019, and I just called it Buddhist Biohacker, and I kind of left it. I was like, I don't know what I'm doing with that. And then March of 2020 came, and COVID came, and it was such an interesting thing. Julie was like, I've got to do something. We've all got to get together. We were using Zoom. And I was like, how do I reach more people? And it was like, oh, I can stream from Zoom onto YouTube. Hey, I created this YouTube channel. I'm going to use that. And here we are. I mean, and that led to so many other things. Like you said, if you just, for me, I just always do whatever the prompt is. I know I need to just do it because I'm being told to do it. And, it's funny, Julie, I'll share, before we close here, I just opened an office, and that was definitely a shocky moment, because if I had taken the time to think through that, I think I probably would have talked myself out of it. But I went and looked at this office. My husband looked at the office. were like, hey, this is like a really great place for me to do my work. And it has a yoga studio and I can use that. And then I like just signed up and I just like went and I moved in. And it was one of those moments where I walked into this office like a few weeks ago, like, oh my gosh, I have an office. And then all of a sudden now there's all these other things that are unfolding that I can do that I wouldn't have done had I not had an office, even offering, sound healings with the gong, like that's something I love, but I haven't been able to offer. And so anyway, like you said, if you act on these certain prompts and you just kind of get guided through it, then it's something that's meant to be for sure.
Yes. And that's kind of riding the wave of it, right?
Yeah, that's the wave for sure. For sure. My gosh. Well, I just could talk to you forever. I love you so much. And I want to just plug for everybody, if you want to know Julie's awakening story, it's on Awaken Grace on the front page of my YouTube channel. I highly invite you to watch that, not just to hear the story, but because there's a lot of Shakti and awakening energy in the story from Julie. And I think it gives you such a great invitation into her work. So I want to share that as well. And Julie, I just really love you and appreciate you so, so much.
Thank you. And likewise, I'll do a plug for Lisa. I would really recommend going on to the Buddhist Biohacker channel on YouTube. There's incredible content there. I mean, just so many amazing videos. I mean, I've kind of lost count of how many you have, but I know it's a huge, huge number. And just covering just about everything, I think, in terms of, health and diet and, spiritual messages and information and guidance and support. And also her book, check out her book as well, because it's really beautiful and it has tremendous wisdom in it. So yeah, and her classes as well. And you can find her on lisaganshaw.com, right, Lisa?
Yeah, lisamgunshaw.com, and you're juliehoyle.org still.
Yeah, very good. Well, I think we can continue this conversation maybe down, a few months or a few weeks down the line, see where we're at. But this has been absolutely fantastic. I've loved every minute of chatting with you, Lisa. Please hang around when I and the recording as well, because I want to have a quick kind of wrap up. And to everybody who's joined us and will be joining us, thank you so much. We really, really appreciate you. We know that time is, it has great value, and we don't fritter it away for nothing. So we really value your time. We value you being here. We value your questions. We value, your interest in what we're offering and what we're speaking about here. So thank you so much. And if you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. Please let other people know about what we're offering here, and have a wonderful Christmas or holiday, whatever you call it. And we'll see you again soon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, everyone. Bye.
Bye.